All right, poultry, my favorite. Just kidding. Poultry, as per usual, is the exception to every rule. So, of course, their digestive systems are completely different than anything we've seen before. This is what the poultry digestive system looks like. So it starts in the beak. They don't have a mouth. I mean, they kind of have a mouth. It's kind of in the beak. So it starts in the beak, ends in the vent. Where is the anus, you ask? The vent is the anus. All right, so the mouth or the beak. This pecks and takes in food. So poultry don't actually have teeth. So that mechanical digestion that happens in the ruminant and the non-ruminant mouth doesn't happen. Okay, so what happens in the mouth? Not much, really. All right, food comes in. That's about it. So the esophagus, thank goodness. We have something that looks familiar, right? So the esophagus guides food from the beak to the crop. What is the crop, you ask? We're talking about that next. So the crop. The crop really has the main function of the equivalent of the enzymatic digestion that happens in the ruminant and the non-ruminant mouth. That is what happens in the crop. This is where saliva is in poultry digestion. All right, so it stores and it softens feed from saliva secretions. This is where your enzymatic digestion is happening in a poultry animal. And it's this, it basically just looks like a sac, and it's between the esophagus and the proventriculus. All right, the proventriculus, it's a really fancy name for a stomach, okay? It is the true stomach of a chicken, but to be honest with you, it doesn't really serve much function, okay? So the crop functions in that enzymatic digestion. The proventriculus, it just kind of sits there. There's not much going on in the proventriculus. And it doesn't really look even like a sac. It's almost just like a wider section of the tube that is the digestive system. All right, so if you look at the proventriculus versus the esophagus, the proventriculus is just going to look wider. That's about it. So from the proventriculus, that feed then moves into the gizzard. This is where your mechanical digestion happens, is in the gizzard. So this is where feed is crushed and mixed with digestive juices. So this is where your hydrochloric acid is and all that good stuff. The grit and gravel that sits in the gizzard is what crushes feed. This basically acts like teeth would in the mouth of a ruminant or a non-ruminant. And it is this oval-shaped, very muscular organ, and it's kind of purplish in color. And it's located between the proventriculus and the small intestine. So you might even make an argument that the gizzard is more like the true stomach of a chicken than the proventriculus is. It certainly serves more functions. So the liver, this does the same thing in poultry that it does in ruminants and non-ruminants. It produces bile that acts on fats. And it's that dark red colored organ made up of several lobes still. It's just on a much smaller scale in poultry versus a ruminant or a non-ruminant. It's made up of several lobes, and it sits kind of right underneath the gizzard. The small intestine, this is still where most food nutrient absorption happens, all right? So again, small intestine, nutrient absorption, all right? It also mixes juices in with the digested food, and it's this very long, coiled, tube-like structure in the abdomen. All right, so ceca. You remember the cecum from the ruminant and the non-ruminant? And you remember we talked about how the cecum in us is called the appendix? Well, poultry actually have two ceca. Okay, so it's the plural word of cecum is ceca. It's not cecums. Ceca. Okay, and this, all we really know about it, we're not 100% sure what the function of the ceca are, but it contains soft, undigested feed. But when we dissect poultry, we find undigested feed in the ceca, but we're not real sure what the function is. Okay, so unlike other animals, poultry have two of them. They're still located in the same place between the small and large intestine. Still blind pouches, each are approximately 7 inches long. And if you think about the size of a chicken, 7 inches is a good amount of length to those ceca. The large intestine. So again, your water absorption happens in the large intestine, adds mucus to undigested feed, which then becomes feces. Okay. So the description of this is this tube-like structure that's larger in diameter when compared to the small intestine. It's still filled with undigested feed. This is where your feces are formed, still in poultry, just as it is in ruminants and non-ruminants. The cloaca. This is where things get a little bit funky. Okay, so the cloaca is actually where digestive and reproductive tracts combine. So when you're thinking about eggs, just remember this. I'm not going to lie, I eat a lot of eggs, so it doesn't really gross me out, but it might gross some people out to know that eggs and waste are excreted out the same way in a chicken. Okay, so this is where the two tracts combine and prepare for the excretion of waste or eggs. Eggs a lot of times will sit in the cloaca for a little while before they are excreted. It is kind of an enlarged part of the digestive tract located just before the vent, and it's enlarged because it's basically the joining together of two different tracts. And then the vent. So the vent excretes solid waste as well as liquid waste, so feces and urine. Eggs also are excreted out the vent. And the vent is that just an external opening at the end of the digestive tract. It's basically the anus and the urethra combined, if that makes sense. That is it for digestion. I hope I didn't go too nerdy on you. I apologize if I did. Thank you very much for watching. That's all I got for you on digestion.